We were hearing all this pushback from people in justice saying, this guy's not doing anything. We should have active investigations going now. The FBI should be up on these guys. We should be taking another look at the Clintons. They should be taking a look at guys like Podesta. They should be taking a look at guys like Brennan, guys like Clapper. They should be taking a look at all these guys. And it just wasn't happening. And so people inside of justice were frustrated. And I think the American public was frustrated.
Hey friends, I just want to say it's funny that most of my videos now are being demonetized by YouTube and deemed not suitable for most advertisers, which is ironic because quality advertisers like Virtual Shield reach out to me directly because they want access to my discerning, intelligent audience. And did you guys hear this news? A Windows 10 bug let UWP apps access all files without users' consent. I'll tell you what, guys, I would recommend a high-quality VPN like Virtual Shield. This virtual private network is one of the easiest VPNs to use in the world, and it's one of the fastest, and their no-log policy protects you from any data breaches. And for those with Windows, Virtual Shield has launched their new IdentiSafe program for Windows users. This Black Friday month, Virtual Shield is offering 40% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons, including Protection Plus, residential access, monthly maintenance, phone support, and VIP performance plans. So do yourself a favor and protect your data from the prying eyes of Big Brother and get Virtual Shield with this excellent deal all month long. I'll leave the link below this video because you do have the right to remain private. Hey friends, welcome back. SGT Report here with a very exciting interview with Thomas Paine from True Pundit, and his real name is Mike Moore. He disclosed that when he released his new book, Paine, How We Dismantled the FBI in Our Pajamas. And boy, he has quite a story to tell. Hey Mike, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean.
Thanks for coming on. So you were targeted by the FBI. You should probably tell people this story because it seems to be one that we hear time and time again. Like, we know the FBI likes to handle patsies and set them up and then arrange a false flag operation, give them the goods, and then right before the bomb, which isn't a bomb, is set to go off, the FBI swoops in and then brags about how they stopped an act of terror when they baked the whole thing to begin with. Is this just standard operating procedure at the FBI?
Yeah, we call that terror theater, where it's more of a theater play than it is really terrorism. I mean, if you hand somebody all the ingredients to make a bomb or money to go wage some type of a domestic jihad, and the person really doesn't do anything, and then they swoop right in and they say, well, they plan to do something because our undercover agents had talked to them and they plan to do something. So it's like whenever I see that, I always think, I always feel bad for. I know it sounds crazy, but I feel bad for the people that get arrested because I doubt that they really had any intent or were close to waging any type of a domestic terrorism, and it's just more of a terrorism theater, FBI theater.
And they're generally low IQ folks or very young. And, I should make this point, though. It's not always an inert bomb. It's not always something that is innocuous and won't actually cause harm. Sometimes it's a real bomb, like in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. And we have the audio tapes of the guy they wanted to blame for that bombing telling his FBI handler, I don't want to put a live bomb down there. And he's told to go ahead and do it anyway. And he has the recordings, and that all came out in court.
Last winter, the FBI was praised for its speed in cracking the case of the World Trade Center bombing and bringing 4 suspects to trial. Now, there is some evidence that the FBI may have known of the plot in advance through an informant and might even have stopped the bombing that killed 6 people.
So sometimes the FBI supplies, real weaponry, real bombs that cause real harm.
This has been going on for a long time. One of our goals when we formed True Pundit was to try to take the mask off the FBI, to let people know that this is a corrupt organization. It's been that way for a long time. It was that way when I worked for them. I was young, so I really didn't catch on to a lot of these things until I was a little bit older. And I was getting paid a lot of money as a contractor, so I just kind of went about my business because the money was good. But then along the lines, when you get a little bit older and you take a step back and you're able to see, I guess experience teaches us a lot of things. So you're able to take a look and say, hey, this stuff that they're doing is not really cool. And I'm doing it for them. So that makes me not cool. And, you want to try to change gears along the way. I mean, I was raised a Catholic, so that's how I guide my moral compass. And one of the reasons we started True Pundit was to kind of right some of the wrongs I had done when I was younger. A lot of work for the government, stuff that I can't get into, stuff that I might get into if they try to mess with me again, stuff that would really turn your stomach. Completely illegal, by the way. And that's why I think, even though the things that I came out with in the book about the FBI and about the deep state, I know that I'm protected because I still have kind of an ace up my sleeve when it comes to the work that we did for them that I don't really cover in the book because a lot of it's classified and messy, and I don't want to get into some kind of a situation where they kick my door in again and drag me away. So we're trying to play it straight down the middle. And that's what we did. But, the point you make is valid. There's, they pick on these people who don't have the wherewithal and don't have the support for somebody in their life that would come in and say, hey, this doesn't seem right. I don't think these people you're dealing with are credible. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's definitely a play out of the playbook, though, and they keep going back to it. Even under Christopher Wray, I've seen stuff. And then well, here we go again. We're supposed to be reforming the FBI, and they're up to their old tricks.
Yeah, and I think people are catching on to these tricks. But the problem is, as you know and I know, is that we have a willing, complicit horror media that just parrots out these official stories to the American public as though they are all real. 9/11, case in point. They're never going to talk about World Trade Center 7 or show you the collapse of that building or ask any of the real questions that remain to be asked about what really happened on 9/11. They just parrot the official story. And that's the problem. The FBI is supposed to be on the side of the people, and yet it seems to be on the side of the deep state, and the mainstream mockingbird media that you're aligned against and I'm aligned against with truth seems to only be willing to parrot official stories. I mean, has it ever been more obvious in your lifetime or mine how absolutely corrupt the mainstream media is? I mean, case in point, CNN. It literally is State Department talking points and anti-Trump talking points 24/7.
Well, the reason that a lot of this is coming to light is because of independent media. This is very simple. It's before, I think this had gone on before for a long time, and people were fooled because they didn't really have a way to cross-check or to cross-reference and cross-examine the facts, alleged facts that they're being reported in newspapers and on television news. So it might be a case that it's always been this corrupt. And now that communications and media are evolving beyond 3 major TV networks and a couple cable TV networks and major newspapers, that it's really pulling the cover back on this whole scheme and showing that Americans have been lied to for a long time.
It occurs to me as we're talking here, I'm seeing the news of this shooting in California. Allegedly, the shooter, 28-year-old Ian David Long, walked into a bar restaurant and opened fire with a Glock in an extended magazine. I'm going to show this guy's picture here. They're saying he's a former Marine. And what strikes me about his picture, Mike, is that he looks very, very similar, if not almost exactly like the character on Ray Donovan, the actor who plays Ray Donovan's son, who also then chose to become a Marine against his father's advice in that show, which appears on Showtime. I'm going to show the actor from Ray Donovan, who plays his son, side by side with this 28-year-old Ian David Long, and I think the resemblance is striking. And the reason I want to share that thought with you, Mike, is because you know that they dismantled the Smith-Mundt Act, which allows the government to now actively use propaganda against the people in this country. So it's hard for us to even know what's real or not real. They could put together these types of events, and it could all be theater. I'm not saying this one was. I'm saying these types of mass shootings could all be theater with crisis actors and a willing media who plays along, because now the government can lawfully, it's not lawful, but that's what they say, they can use propaganda domestically against the people.
Where's the gun, Con?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Where's the gun?
I don't have it, I swear.
So Marcione's lying to me? Huh? You could have killed someone, Con. You think about that?
It's a horror show because now we don't know what's real and we don't know what's propaganda.
Yeah, it's you bring up a good point. I don't know too many details about the shooting yet because they're trickling in, and so I have to take a look at some of the details. But I do know that some other events don't quite match up with the official FBI play-by-play. The Pulse nightclub shooting didn't match up with what they said it was. They released partial transcripts of Omar Mateen's conversations on a cell phone with hostage negotiators. A lot of it was redacted. Why was it redacted? I was one of the first guys to come out and say, it was a couple hours after the shooting in Orlando, I said, Mateen fits the profile of a FBI asset. And everybody, it was like, it's funny because it was like our first or second day in business. We just started. It was like June 12th, I think, or June 13th, 2016. We just literally got the website up and running. This thing broke in Florida. Nothing was happening with it. And we started breaking some stories, and people were like, who the hell are these guys? And I said at the time, he fits the profile of somebody who is being handled by the FBI or has been handled by the FBI or paid by the FBI, or somebody in his family could be paid by the FBI. And then 2 years later, just recently, it comes out that his dad was a FBI asset on the FBI payroll. And people who attacked us 2 years ago are like, oh, yeah, wow, you guys said that 2 years ago. Wow. And meanwhile, the mainstream media didn't touch it because either they don't have the wherewithal to do a story like that, or they don't care, or they want to cover it up.
Yeah.
So I don't know too much about this shooting. It's too fresh. So, but there are certainly official narratives of whenever the FBI is involved. I mean, look at Las Vegas. It's a complete disaster.
That's what I was just going to say. The other mass shooting with more holes in it than a beaver's dam is that Vegas shooting, where nothing adds up. The official story does not hold up to any scrutiny whatsoever.
What do they think? Everybody's stupid? But to a certain point, they're able to manipulate the way you think or care about an event because they took the Las Vegas situation and they literally grounded the public interest into the ground. I guess it's like a bad way to say it, but people became so sick of hearing that there were no motives in Las Vegas that they kind of tuned it out, for the lack of a better explanation. And then the deep state kind of is like, okay, well, we don't really have to say anything now. We don't have to hold any more press conferences, and we don't have to really say much because people stop paying attention. They're paying attention to something else now. So, that's a victory for those people. But again, this is the FBI in Las Vegas, and this happened under Christopher Wray. So if it's supposed to be a new FBI, why didn't they come clean on what was going on? I mean, you saw how fast that they wrestled up this guy in Florida with the Trump ban. If they had used used that same energy in Las Vegas, maybe we would have had some answers. Instead, there's all these questions that continue to linger, and it also spoils the credibility of the FBI.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Hey, I want to ask you something about that hat you have on. It reminds me of craft military operatives that were present in Boston during the Boston Marathon bombing. And I just recall that one. It sticks with me because it's so clear what happened there, too. These same guys wearing hats just like the one you have on, all dressed in black, many of them carrying black backpacks that looked like the backpack that actually exploded. not like the backpack the Patsy was carrying that they blame this all on. And again, it just reminds me that this stuff happens year after year after year after year. And then we'll see Hollywood make movies about it, right? Because they made a Mark Wahlberg movie about the Boston bombing, which I don't think anybody really cared to even go see. But it just drives home the point that no matter how many holes there are in these official stories, we get the willing media that will celebrate the anniversary, right, with candlelight vigils, and Hollywood that will celebrate the official story with movies. And it all just goes down the memory hole, and people forget.
Well, one of the things about that is you don't really know if the guys were working for Kraft or not. They could have just bought the hats. Like, we had some contacts at Kraft, and they were saying that that wasn't a Kraft operation in Boston. So,
well, I'll show the pictures. I mean, it was definitely an organization. It was an organized.
Oh, I think it was organized. I agree.
These guys were organized, and they all had headsets and walkie-talkies and comms, all that stuff.
But the guys who were running Kraft at the time, because Kraft was Chris Kyle's company, American Sniper, and he passed away. And then obviously passed away.
Well, he was murdered. So, that's a whole nother story, wasn't he? He took a guy to a gun range, and the official story is the guy he took, I believe somebody with post-traumatic stress disorder. He took this guy, he's trying to help this guy. Let's go to the shooting range, and the guy shoots him in the back of the head, I believe. Is that the official story? I'm not buying that one either.
Shot him a couple of times, supposedly. So after Chris Kyle died, Kraft kind of went a little wayward. So, there is a potential that Kraft was involved. But,
and by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt because now you got my synapses firing. Isn't Chris Kyle the one who falsely accused Jesse Ventura of being a liar? And see, this was when Jesse Ventura was at the height of his power. Really, he was very, very popular, thinking about running for president. And then Chris Kyle comes out and starts spreading all of this slander against Jesse, saying that he once saw Jesse disparage the Navy SEALs in a bar and get in a fight or something like that. And it always
something like that. I don't.
And
really
it went
know.
to court, and Jesse won, and Chris Kyle lost. And then Chris Kyle gets popped in the back of the head at this gun range. See, I think that Chris Kyle was an asset of the deep state sent to try to character assassinate Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura takes him to court and wins. Well, of course, that all happened after Chris Kyle was already dead. See, anytime you dig into any of this stuff, there's only more questions that are raised.
I agree with you, and I think it's good to ask questions. A lot of these situations lend themselves to questions because they don't make sense. And I think we need more people who are asking questions and less people who just accept the official narrative of especially the FBI. It usually doesn't come out that there's so many holes in stuff they do. Even the recent arrest in Florida with this Trump fan guy. The indictments look pretty thin. I would expect by now they would have been beefed up with supplemental filings and things like that, maybe additional indictments. But I haven't seen that. We will look at that. We watch for that every day. I haven't seen it. But some of the stuff doesn't add up. But anyhow, getting back to what we were talking about with the shooting. The Orlando situation is just one example. There's numerous, and there's Vegas, and the list goes on and on. And then you find out that these guys, the FBI, they have their fingers in all this stuff. And a lot of the players involved in these shootings have a history with the FBI, either as assets or they were interviewed by the FBI for different terror-related situations 2, 3, 4 times, and the FBI didn't do anything. Well, the reason the FBI didn't do anything is because they probably put those people on their payroll, become informants, and they're not going to reveal that to the general public because it would be an uprising. And the amazing thing is, though, Sean, is that we have contacts in Congress. They know all this stuff is going on, yet they do nothing. That's why my frustration with Congress is growing tremendously, and they know these things go on, and they just kind of sit there and, well, we don't want to mess with the FBI. And I'm like, why not? If you don't try to fix it, it'll never be a reformed organization. And maybe that's the point. Maybe it's too far gone. I mean, maybe it's just too far gone.
You bring up a good point about the FBI informant connection with a lot of these suspects, because there are unanswered questions that remain about Tamerlan, Sanarov, the alleged Boston bomber. Even Boston local media has been asking the questions as recently as 2017, was the Boston bomber a federal informant? Of course, the FBI says no, but what else would the FBI say? Time and time and time again, we either see these things are entirely false flags or they're false flag operations that are created and rolled out to be blamed on somebody that they're already handling. Let me ask you this. Let's just change gears. Let's talk about Sessions. I see here at True Pundit, you have an article out here, White House, Trump is floating the Clintons' worst nightmare as Jeff Sessions' replacement to run DOJ. You can flesh that out for me, but I know that Matthew G. Whitaker, the Chief of Staff to Attorney General Jeff Sessions at the Department of Justice, will now be the new acting Attorney General. And this guy has been very, very vocal about the Clinton Foundation's crimes. Is that what you mean by the article? Or do you have your eye down the line on somebody like, who did I just see? He's thinking, Trump is thinking about appointing Chris Christie. I don't think that's a great choice. But your thoughts on this. What is the Clintons' worst nightmare here now that Sessions is out?
CBS broke that Chris Christie thing today. I don't know how valid it is. But the article, it's funny, Sean, the article that you're talking about, we wrote on August 31st. Like, we knew that Sessions was gone. We got word on August 23rd that Trump had made a decision that he was finished. So we wrote that article on August 31st, and then we just reprinted it today. So we wrote it even before Sessions was fired. And people are like, what are you talking about? Sessions isn't, he's still Attorney General. We said, well, you got to, some of these stories we write are like fine wine. You have to wait a while for them to make sense, because we have a reputation for being far out in front of the mainstream media puppets. But the article deals with Louis Freeh. He's been offered the position by the White House, and or offered to come in and interview for the position by the White House. So he was a former FBI director. He does not like the Clintons. When he was FBI director under Bill Clinton, they went to war. And in Freeh's book, his big book about his time at FBI during the Clinton administration, he talks about openly wanting to investigate Clintons more and do more to investigate the Clintons. So that's what we mean by worst nightmare. I mean, here's a guy that Clinton brought in. He turned against Clinton while he was in there, and obviously, sitting FBI director is going to have quite a pushback trying to investigate a president when the president appointed the Attorney General as well. So now that things have changed, if Freeh takes the job, now he has a Republican-controlled Department of Justice, and if he wants to investigate the Clintons, he doesn't have to jump through hula hoops to try to get it done.
I am taking a look right now over at a site that I follow, and I usually share these posts from Neon Revolt over at my site, sgtreport.com. And there's a new one out today. It says, the title is, Say Hello to Mr. Clean. Nothing will stop what is coming from sea to shining sea. Handoff confirmed. This is an article about Sessions being dismissed by the president. And I think what has so many of QAnon critics in a fury is the fact that Q has been saying for a long time, trust Sessions, trust the plan. And their belief is because the president dismissed Sessions, which we all really saw coming here. We thought it would happen right after the midterms. We didn't know it would be literally the day after the midterms. But these Q critics say, now you know the whole thing's a LARP, the whole thing's a lie. There is no plan because now they fired Sessions when we were told to trust Sessions. Your thought on that? Because my thought is Sessions served at the pleasure of the president. So if Trump is not Q, and yet the Q folks are a group of white hats that are close to the president, it's still the president's prerogative to get rid of Sessions should he want. Your thoughts on Sessions being dismissed in Q?
Well, our thoughts on Sessions has just been straight up following the trends and talking to people at Justice for the last year and a half that say he wasn't in control of the situation. He wasn't in control of the Justice Department. By that, we mean he wasn't respected by the people that were working for him. He wasn't feared by the people that were working for him, that they would lose their job if they didn't do what he said or wanted to do. And largely he was engrossed in immigration and issues having to do with the legalization of marijuana. Those seem to be where his head was. He wasn't really worried about reforming a corrupt Department of Justice and a corrupt FBI. I think that Trump got into office, for the most part, talking about reforming corrupt deep state, the swamp. Well, the swamp can't be fixed unless you have a functional Department of Justice that's going to prosecute people. And we became critics of Sessions about 8 months into the administration, because he wasn't doing anything, and we were hearing all this pushback from people in justice saying this guy's not doing anything. We should have active investigations going now. The FBI should be up on these guys. We should be taking another look at the Clintons. They should be taking a look at guys like Podesta. They should be taking a look at guys like Brennan, guys like Clapper. They should be taking a look at all these guys, and it just wasn't happening. And so people inside of justice were frustrated, and I think the American public was frustrated. So we just looked at Sessions from a straight point of view of news and intel, with what we've, the experience we've had through the decades, to say this guy's just not getting the job done. And while there was a lot of fanfare about whether Sessions was working some kind of a quiet operation with Trump, that was going around the internet for a while. And like I said, we don't really follow Q like that much, because we're so busy here, and we have a very small group here just trying to get through the day-to-day things. But I felt that Trump's disdain with Sessions matched up with the complaints we were getting from Justice and from some high-ranking guys in Justice, and also FBI. So I think that it was legit. I think that Trump was literally frustrated with the guy, wanted to get more done, and wanted to try to reform Justice and Department of Justice to a better extent than it has now, 2 years in now. And plus, he's got this whole Mueller thing, which just won't go away. And I think that frustrated him as well. So
you could see his frustration in this recent meeting with the press, right? He makes himself available to the Mockingbird mainstream media for 90 minutes, willing to answer any of their questions. And then you have a quote unquote reporter, Jim Acosta, accosting the president. I mean, this guy is vermin, and now he's had his press credentials pulled. He doesn't show any respect to the office, and he certainly doesn't show any respect to Trump. It's really a shame, frankly, because I think Trump is a stand-up guy, and they treat him like he's vermin.
Well, I cover the governor's office when I was in mainstream media. I covered the State House in New Jersey. So I was assigned to, before I took over investigative division for the Record in Hackensack I was working at, a pretty big paper. They threw me down to the Trenton division because I was causing a lot of problems up in Bergen, North Jersey. I said, send him to Trenton and let him bug the governor and the attorney general. So I went down to Trenton. You couldn't act that way in a press conference with the governor. The state police would have thrown you out of the press conference. You couldn't do something like what Acosta's doing. You had to, if you had differences with the governor or the attorney general, which I did, you had to address it in a professional manner. You couldn't act that way. So, and this is a state house in New Jersey. This isn't the White House. So there's a decorum, and these folks are proving that they're not really reporters. These people are activists. These people are plants for the Democratic Party. And a guy like Acosta is looking to make money outside of CNN. He's probably going to get a book deal out of this, and the whole thing will probably be a movie about what a hero he is. And, well, other reporters are getting killed in third world countries that don't get a movie and they don't get a GoFundMe, they don't get a book deal. That's what it's all about today. So I'm not surprised by this Acosta guy. I'm surprised it took him this long, the White House, to revoke or at least sanction him in some way. And there should be others. There are others that are that act in a similar fashion. They think there's some kind of a Norma Ray. This is like me against you. That's not your role as a reporter. If you want to be that, then stop pretending you're in the media and go create your own pack or something along those lines. But stop using the guise of the media as a cover for being political activists. And I think the word is out now on the street with the general public. They say, hey, these people aren't really reporters. They're kind of maniacs. They're kind of unhinged. They're not really, for the simple fact that they do not report accurately whatever Trump says. Like, you talk to him for 90 minutes and you read these stories and it's like, wait a minute, he didn't really say that. He didn't really say, he didn't. So why does he even talk to these people? I think he likes to talk to them to beat them up a little bit, and show the American public that these guys are puppets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a strategic play on Trump's part, the day after the midterms when he lost the House, to come out and start smacking these guys around a little bit. And then it's funny because, Sean, think about it. He talked to him for 90 minutes and he knew he was going to fire Sessions. Okay. It was already in the process the same day, but he didn't say that during the press conference. He didn't even talk about it. So he smacked these guys around a little bit, and then he waited like an hour and a half for this Acosta thing to blow up. And then he dropped this in their laps, and I could just see him laughing, having these guys scurry around the day after midterms. They thought it was going to be like a liberal parade. And he drops this in their laps at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. And all these guys like to go out in D.C. and get their cocktails around 5 or 5:30. The whole city shuts down. The whole news cycle shuts down until after a cocktail hour. It gears back up around 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock for a little bit. But I could just see him sitting back and laughing, saying, "Okay, you guys want to be smart asses? We'll send you guys scurrying around like rats today."
Yeah. Well, he's referred to the mainstream mockingbird media as the enemy of the people. I think those of us who follow the truth media know that that's true. And I think what's interesting about the way he handles them in these press conference opportunities, I just think it's interesting the way he gives them the chance to prove that he's right through their own behavior and their own idiotic questions, like always going back to Russiagate. That's all they have left. And they try to topple this president with Russiagate, which we all know goes back to the DNC and the deep state. So as we round out this conversation, I really want your opinion on the plan. And of course, I'm talking about Q here a little bit. We've heard Q say FISA brings down the House. So we know that they used FISA illegally to spy on the president, or then candidate Trump. So they've committed crimes, and if the FISA memos, if all that stuff is declassified, Q says it'll bring down the House. It might bring down people like Adam Schiff, Maxine Waters, many others. So let me just read this to you from this Neon Revolt article that I mentioned earlier in our interview. It's a brand new Neon Revolt article. And I'm not asking you to comment on Q. I'm just asking you as an alt media journalist to comment on the deep state, which we now see in the wide open, right? Clapper, right. Mueller, Comey, Clinton, Podesta, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, all of these wagons circling around this president, working with the British to blame the Russians and President Trump for something they did. Okay, let me read this to you, and then you tell me how this is all going to work out. Neon Revolt asks, can we trust Q? Can we trust the plan? If Q is real, there's really only two explanations for his existence. That is, the existence of this Q operation. Number one, Trump is lying and using Q as a psyop to justify imprisoning and executing his political enemies. Or number two, Q is telling the truth about a satanic cabal that runs the world, which Trump and his patriots are working to uproot around the world. If we accept that Q is real, those are the only two options we have for explaining his existence. There's not much room here for any other option. And given everything we've seen with Hillary's 2016 campaign and her long history of arkancide, the Podesta leaks, and the ferocious nonstop slander of Q by the legacy media, it's Occam's razor, folks. They wouldn't be fighting Q this hard if it didn't represent a threat to their power. Look, we all know who the bad actors in this really are. We know the women Bill Clinton has raped. We know the men Hillary has had killed. We know of their trips down to Epstein's Island. We know of the uranium sold to Russia. We know of Obama's activities in Karachi, Pakistan. And we know much, much more. Mike, this isn't conspiracy theory. This is conspiracy fact. Your thoughts on how this all plays out. Does Trump now have the power with the white hats and the military behind him to serve justice upon these people with military tribunals or civil court for all I care?
You know, maybe the question isn't whether Q is real, because Q followers are engaged in the political process now. What's going on? They're kind of, what are they, the people used to say, I'm woke. I used to laugh at that stuff. You should have been woke a long time ago. But maybe whether Q is real or not, the problem the media has with it is that these people who normally a lot of housewives and regular people that, because I talk to people about this all the time, regular people are now engaged in this process and they see what's going on. And normally they would be engaged in something else and they wouldn't be paying attention. That probably is more dangerous than anything, because a lot of these things that happen and a lot of the things that go down that have the deep state signature on it they go down because people aren't paying attention, or they don't care, or they don't know about these things. And there's nothing more dangerous, I think our founding fathers have put it, nothing more dangerous than a patriot who is involved in the process. So they know what's real, what's bullshit, and etc. So as far as tribunals and things, I don't really know anything about that. And I just think that if we just get that back to basics, and I think Trump made a major move to do that yesterday. I don't think you need the military tribunals and things along those natures. If you talk about Occam's razor, it's just the simplest solution would be just indict these people the way they indict everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's the point Neon Revolt makes in this article. The next paragraph was, look, folks, if any of these people were you or I, we would be in prison already for just a fraction of the crimes they've committed. And, you know, I guess we can round it out this way. I agree with you. An informed, active, patriotic citizenship is what the deep state fears the most. That and a military that backs a president who will enforce the rule of law. I'll leave you guys with the good news here. Remember those two choices we gave you? Can we trust Q? Can we trust the plan? The first one is Trump is lying and using Q for his own means so he can imprison his political enemies. The second choice is that Q is telling the truth about a satanic cabal that runs the world. Let me round it out with this, guys. Neon Revolt writes, you're going to have to go with door number 2 on this one, that there are a bunch of evil people in power, and now Trump is using an operation planned by the military to take them down. And with this being a military operation comes military planning, and not just on a tactical scale, but on a scale so far beyond what the average citizen is aware even exists. When you combine military-grade surveillance and espionage with prediction software algorithms, think Plantier on steroids, you've got a recipe for something truly spectacular. Make no mistake, all roads here lead to utter ruination of the cabal. Now, we'll see how this plays out, Mike, but I'll tell you what, if what I just read comes true, we are truly blessed, because I've said for a long time, if the witch had won the election and she was in the White House right now, it would already be game over.
Well, it'd be game over for a guy like me. I'd probably be back in jail. They'd throw my ass back in jail because we just refused to back down. And we didn't back down during the election when we were breaking stories on her. And we broke this story on her about the Assange drone story. That didn't sit well with her campaign at all, because it was true. Nobody's ever come along and say, hey, that story was crap, because it's not crap. It happened. They denied it by saying, oh, well, it must have been a joke. So if she were president, you're right. It would already be game over, because guys like me would be out of business. And yeah, I hope that however it has to go down, it goes down. And whatever doubts I have about Q, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is some massive intel operation going on behind the scenes. However we get to cleaning this mess up, I'm all for that as an American and as a patriot.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem putting my ego on the shelf during this whole thing and say, hey, I was wrong about certain things. That's cool. But in the end, I think, and this goes for a lot of people that follow Q too. In the end, their heart is in the right place and their mind is finally in the right place. They're focused on these things that are going on and they see what's going on. And the important thing too is, Sean, is now that a lot of these people have kids, they can teach their kids to kind of counterbalance the shit that they're learning at school from these liberal public schools. You sit around the dinner table and they say, well, Mrs. or Mr. said this. And then if you're educated in the political process as a parent, you can say, don't pay any attention to that. That's complete nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. These people are so to have people engaged in the political process, it also helps foster the next generation that's able to learn from their parents. And there's no better mentors than your parents.
I just want to leave folks with this as we part ways with Mike. Thomas Paine is how he's known really over at True Pundit. The FBI comes in the early morning hours, guns blazing, and accosts his family, scares the crap out of his entire family, his kids. And how does he react? He reacts by creating truepundit.com, which didn't previously exist. And it now ranks in the top 7,000 websites in the United States, and it's in the top 24,000 globally. Okay, so that's how we pay these people back for their crimes against us. We fight with our liberty. We fight with our First Amendment. And hats off to you, Mike. Can you tell people how to find your book, How We Dismantled the FBI in Our Pajamas? That'd be a good Christmas gift.
Yeah, it's they can just go to FBIpajamas.com. It leads right to the ordering pages and things like that. And we're happy with the book. The book's done really well. It doesn't have any marketing money behind it. And it's done really well. We stopped kind of pushing it because of the election, because it was hard to compete with the mayhem, the general mayhem leading up to the election. So next week we'll probably start promoting a little bit more. And but it's exceeded my expectations of how it's been received and reviewed and how many people have bought it. It's kind of mind-boggling in a way to know that with no money and we self-published it, that you can compete with these multi-million-dollar backed liberal publishers and without any, we don't have TV spots and things like that, and we don't have Hannity and that whole crew promoting our book or having me on the show and things like that. So it's more of a grassroots approach, which I actually kind of like better, because I think a lot of these other people are ego-driven and they're all worried about their own brand. That's just not my bag. It's not our bag. We just want to tell people stuff they don't already know. That's kind of our niche, and that's our focus, and that's what we've been doing, and that's what we continue. I think we're planning to continue to do.
Yeah, well, it's a great looking cover to that book, so I'd invite people to check it out, maybe buy a couple copies and give them out as Christmas gifts. And I'll leave you all with this quote from Thomas Paine: "The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph." I think we do stand on the cusp of triumph and great things ahead for our country if we can fully expose this deep state and bring these criminals to justice, Mike. So thanks for what you're doing over there at True Pundit.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If this interview resonated with you and if you found truth to be inspiring, there's a lot of it here. Share it within your sphere of influence on social media if you don't mind. And for real news 24/7, be sure to check us out at sgtreport.com. The antidote to corporate propaganda and Mockingbird mainstream media lies. God bless, guys. Bye-bye.
Somebody in the 1% of the old families that own the country ordered the murder of John Kennedy. And I'm only saying this publicly for the very first time because Jim Garrison told me all this in confidence. He said it was probably Averell Harriman.